Welcome to Hospitality Meets with me, Phil Street, where each week we take a light-hearted look into the stories and individuals that make up the wonderful world of hospitality. Today's guest is Conrad Brunton, founder and managing director of Tonic and huge hospitality advocate. Coming up on today's show, Conrad tells us the name of his new thriller.
The cockroach in the bloodstream.
Phil gets put on the back foot. That's the toughest question anybody's ever asked me on this podcast. And Conrad recounts a particularly shameful moment.
I had to tell Sir Terence Conrad that we'd run out of chips.
All that and so much more as we chat through Conrad's epic journey so far. Beyond his epic journey, I brought Conrad on as he's trying to garner support from the industry to appeal to the government to wade in with some kind of package of support. So if you're listening to this and have even a tiny percentage of love for hospitality, I'd urge you to add your signature to the list, and I'll put the link in the show notes. Enjoy. And a massive Hospitality Mates welcome. We're doing this finally to someone who I think is probably going to make me sound like an introvert. And that is none other than Conrad Brunton.
That's very kind, sir. Very kind.
Well, is it? That remains to be seen.
Yeah, well, let's see. We'll see where we go.
Yeah. How are you?
No, thank you. So, absolutely. Yeah, I'm really good, thank you. And it's an absolute pleasure to join you. I've listened to many of your podcasts and you've had some absolute bangers on in the past. So I don't know how I've snuck in. I think I've snuck in because of my rants this week. But there we are. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, a little bit of that, but this was going to happen anyway. And the reason, like, you do yourself an injustice because, you know, when I started this podcast, it was about finding characters who had great stories, you know, something to talk about that's interesting beyond this is my career. It was one wonderful trajectory upwards, and here we are. That's pretty much nobody's journey, right? So, and you're certainly, and having now read your form, in which you very kindly filled out, certainly doesn't sound like your journey was just one straight run up the ladder.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. And it's been a long journey really, because I was always very entrepreneurial. I knew I wanted to work for myself, but I started working within hospitality at the age of 14. I was a KP, which is obviously I as a recruitment consultant, I hear so many people get in through the glass collecting, through the KP kind of route. But I loved it. I loved the buzz of a kitchen. Really brilliant. It was just a pub, you know, but she was a great female head chef. And the banter in the kitchen was brilliant. And I used to really like to take pride in washing up. You know, I took real pride in what I did. You know, I was washing cars at the age of 12 on my estate, and I used to really want to do the best bloody job I could of washing cars. And I've kind of just always had this drive. If I'm going to do something, I want to just do it like to the absolute best of my abilities. So, like when I did the fish and chip shop and we actually became the best in England, I had no preconceptions about fish and chips. You know, often it'll be that your dad or your granddad had a fish and chip shop, and then therefore you have it, and you have to do things the way that someone did it previously. But we travelled around to the best fish and chip shops in the country. We tried hundreds of portions of fish and chips, which sounds
that sounds like a nightmare.
Actually, it becomes like horrendous. And you know, some days three or four different things to try. But we were actually named the best in England, and we took immense pride in what we did there as well. And I've sort of always really took that on, you know, and what I do now with Tonic and what I do with the networking and charity stuff that we do. I think if you're going to do something, you do it to the absolute best. Yeah,
but I kind of love the concept of, like, you know, naivety and entrepreneurialism I've come to learn is, is one of the greatest traits that you can have, right? Because you come into it and go, yeah, we could do that. Yeah, we could do that. Yeah, sure. Yeah. And not only are we going to do it, we're going to do it better than anybody else. I've got no idea how, but that's the objective.
Away we go. Yeah.
And if you overthink things too much sometimes in entrepreneurialism, then you just, you know, it's that analysis paralysis, right? You just get yourself into a space where it actually doesn't move forward. But the fact that you started and we've kind of just gone straight into your journey here and probably jumped a big swathe of
there was a big jump.
But but to go into it with, you know, we're going to do this from the ground up rather than from knowledge down, as it were, is actually it's a really interesting way to start a business.
Yeah, I wanted a gastropub. When I ran the numbers of a gastropub, I realised that a gastropub was completely and utterly out of my capabilities financially. I still think that Birmingham probably has a gap for what I call a true gastropub, a sort of a Harwood Arms style of operation. We have some very, very good pubs, don't get me wrong, but really kick-ass food, I'm talking. So then just thought, okay, well, what's Birmingham not got? And we hadn't got a brilliant fish and chip shop, so we opened one, we put it in a bad location.
In
I'll
a bad
quickly
location.
go in a terrible location.
Okay.
Yeah. Just terrible location. Everyone says location, location, location. It was in a terrible location. There was no Deliveroo then. The only social media really was Facebook. The proliferation of Instagram and TikTok. So there were no sort of free tools for marketing that was effective. There were no delivery platforms. We had to buy our own van to try and do deliveries. It really was a tough slog, but it taught me so much, and I wouldn't change it for the world, because it taught me true. I mean, to say I was working hard, I've never ever worked harder in my entire life, and I'd worked hard previously, and I've worked hard since. But the level of work ethic that ingrained in me was 6 days a week. Was myself and one of my best friends, who's still a best friend. We never had crosswords at all. We always sort of got where we needed to be, and you talk things out, but we'd never had crosswords. It was quite amazing. Big shout out to Andy if he ever listens to this. So I will go back a little bit, because I feel I've jumped to this, like you said. So KP, always working in the industry. And I love the places I worked as well. I love the different jobs that I had at Rosette Restaurant, pubs, all sorts. I really got quite a lot of a different experience under my belt. Always kind of front of house in restaurants was my main forte. And then I studied at the College of Food, and I was never studious at all. But when I studied there, I actually got first in my degree. It just all made sense to me. And having never
That's half the
been a
battle,
great
right?
student,
But
yeah,
find,
it just clicked.
yeah, if
Find what you
you've got
love.
a
Find what you love.
subject that you love, then it's way
Yeah.
easier to learn it, right? And that's the problem for a lot of people at school, is that it's far too broad. You have to do things rather than you want to do things. And then when you get the opportunity to actually pursue something that ignites you, then the learning experience becomes just way easier.
Absolutely. But I put on my form the cockroach in the bloodstream. You might have wondered what that was. So
Yes, I don't think I've ever seen those words together in a sentence before.
Sir Terence Conrad, incredibly famous restaurateur, Sir Terence, right? He wrote in his book, it's like a cockroach in the bloodstream, restaurants. It's just there, right? And I was lucky enough to serve him once, and it was like, there's many times in my life that I feel I've been in the presence of absolute genius, working at the Fat Duck and speaking to Heston about what he was doing there. And there's been
coming on this podcast.
Yeah, 100%. Whenever we're together, I'm like, wow, I'm in the presence of a genius here. But I told him that a visit to Quaglino's age 15 was the reason that I really love restaurants. And that was what cemented it for me. My dad was like, let's go to this restaurant together, and up until that time, I'd been to like Harvesters and Beef Eaters and, things of that nature. Nothing wrong with a Harvester. Absolutely love a good salad cart to this very day.
For sure.
But that was what cemented it. And that's the cockroach in the bloodstream. And really since then, I was like, restaurants and hospitality is absolutely for me. And I worked at some Michelin star restaurants, a restaurant called Simpson's, really sticks in my mind as I just loved it. It moved into central Birmingham, and I just knew I needed to work there. So I was front of house opening team there as well. And then I did some time down at the Fat Duck. I just drove from Birmingham every day, 5 days a week. I just drove there and back and worked for free just to get some experience there, and got offered a role there, but sadly didn't take it because of illness of a parent at the time. But always been in and around it here in Birmingham, really. And everyone can tell from my voice, obviously, where I'm from, but I'm massively passionate about my city, as I think everyone is passionate about their cities. But I think that there's some amazing stuff gone on and going on here, not without its challenges, which maybe we'll wait and do a bit more positivity before we get on to
let's build the positivity cup.
Let's build a positivity cup so that we can drain it out afterwards. But, obviously now, kind of fast forward, I went through the Mitchells and Butlers graduate training scheme after uni, and then started my fish and chip shop. Ran that for 3 and a bit years. Went bankrupt, sadly, from that. But wouldn't change it for the world, to be honest with you. I think, I am where I am because of all of the experiences I've had previously. And I will note that when we did wrap up the chip shop, we didn't owe money to anyone apart from HMRC and the rent, which was part of a massive pension fund. I do hear about restaurateurs and bar owners who, phoenix their business and they owe the bread supplier, $3,000, or they owe the butcher. And I know people who've done that actually, and I think it's disgraceful. You think you got to pay everyone We paid absolutely everyone. We paid all of our staff, and I didn't have a pot to piss in. If I'm being perfectly honest, I mean,
Yeah.
I couldn't even get a mobile phone contract for about 4 years. I came out of the EE shop once when I got a contract, like the happiest man alive. Everyone was to
Well,
me like, "Why is that dude so happy?"
yeah, but you know what? Like, this is not. I don't think we've really had a discussion about this kind of stuff on the podcast before. It's massively important because I think that there's still this perception that if something like that happens, that's the end. Like you're a failure. I mean, there's all manner of reasons why something does not work out. Right? One,
Yeah,
you were
yeah,
battling a poor location to start with. That sounds like you were
that's right.
pushing a boulder up a hill
Yeah,
for probably the whole duration. But I
yes.
mean, we only just need to look at the current climate of operation, right? This is, I think, the key message for me is that it's definitely not the end. If
No.
if that is the only option that you can take, then it is actually
Mm.
the beginning of something
Mm.
rather than the end of something.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't know many people who are successful who haven't had a failure. I'm not saying that I've classed myself in that bracket, but a lot of people have been bankrupt. A lot of people, but everyone's had a failure, right? We all have failures all the time.
Yeah.
I constantly look at how I can do things better in all that I do now, really, with Tonic. Tonic probably was very close to going under at a couple of points, but, you just got to fight and scrap. It's a very, very difficult operating environment that we find ourselves in. Myself, all the team, we only recruit for hospitality. We love hospitality. Someone's always like, "Well, couldn't you just go and recruit something else?" I'm like,
I know.
recruitment. I don't like recruit. It's not recruitment that I like, Phil. So when I talk to people, I go, it's not the recruitment that I like. It's the conversations that we have with the clients and the candidates, and it's the problem solving. That's what I absolutely adore. I told you before we came on about a young man whose new restaurant I went to last night, and I'm going to shameless plug for Elliot Brown at Samo's in Birmingham, cracking new bistro. But I met Elliot when I was 17, and I placed him once for no fee and just put him into somewhere. His father bought me a really lovely vintage watch to say thank you, and then since then I've always guided his career, and just he comes to me for a bit of advice, and I adore that. This week I've spoken to some massive exec chefs. One gentleman was the group exec for Jamie's Italians. Fascinating to speak to this guy. He's absolutely brilliant. But then I love speaking to junior people. Then I love speaking to my clients about how's your business and visiting their businesses. And, so the
Yeah.
recruitment's
Just
a
start a
byproduct
podcast,
of the
mate.
conversations. Someone said that, but I think you can't go up against someone like yourself. You've got these boxed off now.
There is no up against. I am a massive advocate that the more voices we have, the better. It's because, and we'll probably talk about that at some point as well. But it's so important that those of us who do have a voice and feel compelled to use it, and don't just play the game from the sides.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, life requires different people. It requires people who are happy to be on the sidelines and keep strong. And me and you do not fit into that category, right? I think people here in Birmingham and across the region maybe wish I'd shut up a bit this week because I've just been absolutely ranting across social media, ranting across different groups, as you know, trying to garner some support for a letter to go to Rachel Reeves and her merry bunch. Again, we'll come on to that at some point.
Yeah, indeed. Well, let's finish your journey first before we get into that, because I do want to talk about that. It's massively important,
Yeah, of course.
because of the time of life that we find ourselves in. It would be remiss of even a positive podcast show to not acknowledge the fact that times are fecking tough right now.
Yeah. I don't speak to really anyone, any client, and we have clients which completely span all hospitality and catering, contract caterers, really large fast food franchises, 5-star hotels. I mean, the real absolute breadth, right down to street food, and we don't have that many shiny conversations. Everyone's got a bit of an issue. Everyone's feeling the pinch, and I think that is putting it politely. If I'm being honest, our VAT rate being as high as it is, it just needs to come into line with the rest of Europe. It's just it's just crippling us. It's absolutely crippling us. I don't know
Yeah.
whether they will do anything. You know, I fully appreciate. I'm not naive. There's not a bottomless pit of money, but I think if we start getting companies that provide us goods and services in this country to pay the correct rate of taxation, then that's going to put a lot of money in the pot, right? I mean, Amazon, Starbucks, we were talking about others before we came on air. Let's get them paying the right amount of taxation. Let's have a level playing field with your local coffee shop. So myself and some business, hospitality business leaders, we had a round table meeting, representation from NCAS, from the Institute of Hospitality, people from University College Birmingham, where I studied, went back and lectured, and I still have great links with UCB. It was a really good round table meeting. Kate Nichols sat in on that kind of virtually as well. And put together a letter to the Chancellor from that. So I'm sure that you'll be able to add a link somewhere that people can click. I know that you shared that very kindly yesterday. You shared that out across your LinkedIn. So people want to go onto Tonic Talent socials or Midlands Hospitality Network socials, they can find the link for that. But I'm sure you'll be able to embed that somewhere. So if anyone is listening to this,
I'll whack
I think
that in the show notes.
we've got till next Wednesday. So hopefully there'll be a couple of days, maybe, depending on when you get it out. I'm not sure when you're planning to release this.
It'll actually go out on Wednesday.
Okay.
Is that
well?
Why what's the deadline? Why is there a deadline on it?
We just felt that we should put a deadline on it. But if it starts to gain mega traction, so actually I could say that I've been on this, and if people who hear this, what we will do, we'll extend it then. We'll extend it by another week. So from the Wednesday when it goes out, there will be another week to sign that. So if anyone is listening, and please could sign and share that amongst family, friends. It doesn't matter whether you're in America. I don't care who signs it. Yeah, everyone wants to support the UK hospitality industry who is listening to this podcast.
And also, I think the key message for me is, and you were very eloquent in the way that you put this, is that this is not just something that affects people who work in hospitality. This affects everyone who likes a pint or
everyone
wants to go out for a plate of food somewhere. Yeah. You know, we're watching. We've got front row seats at the moment to the erosion of one of the most important industries to this little island of ours.
Their first job was in a pub, was in a restaurant, was in a cafe. You know, people who return to work, people who are a little bit older and might have come out of something and they just want a few hours in a cafe or pulling some pints. You know, it is vital. And it has never been under more pressure. And even if you go, oh, that pub of mine is busy, okay, it might be busy, but the margins that the owner of that pub is making are smaller than ever. Mm. And we have to do something about the pressure, the cost pressure. You know, energy's gone through the roof, staffing costs have gone through the roof due to really kind of Brexit and the COVID pandemic. More and more people leaving the industry, people not coming back due to Brexit and the pandemic from Europe. Staffing costs through the roof. Your inputs have gone through the roof. Your raw ingredients, whatever it might be that you're buying, extra virgin olive oil has doubled in price, you know, in the past 5 years. That's just one example. You know, oil through the roof. I think about if I had to do my chip shop again, the cost we'd probably have to serve our fish and chips, and I'm ballparking this as a complete guesstimate. 15 quid for fish chips and peas. That, you know, the way that we used to do it, the quality we did it to, in order to make the right sort of GP percentage on that. You know, are people going to pay 15 quid for fish and chips? Well, in London, they might in a gastro pub, but you know.
Well, but then what all that really does is it puts a seed into somebody's mind that says, as you said, do I want to pay 15 quid for that, or will I just go to Tesco and pick up a way inferior experience? But that's what that's how much money
the opportunity cost of it. Yeah, absolutely. And look, I'm not naive. Everyone's pockets are being pinched at the moment.
Yeah, and, but it's all part of the same ecosystem, though.
It is exactly right. Yeah, exactly right. And I fully appreciate that the government have been left a shit show from previous governments, and you know they're trying to put it right. I'm contrary to kind of what I've been trying to do this week, I'm not really an overly political person. I don't trust any of them. I never trusted. I'm 100% with you.
You know, I do not discriminate. I hate them all.
No, I hate them all. You know, we're talking about Rees-Mogg before we came on. And we were, I mean, what the man's a joke. They're all a joke. I'm sorry, they are all an absolute joke. And then when we found out the level of what that they were up to during the pandemic, when we were staying at home, and I couldn't go and see the people that I love, and no one could. And I know people who couldn't go and see their loved ones, and minimal number of funerals and stuff like that. And then they're there. We find out, it's
Yeah.
strange.
No,
So
indeed.
that's the reason I'm not an overly political person, because I just don't trust any of them. I don't think any of them do a good job, and I don't know what we do to sort that out. So let's leave that one right there.
Well, indeed, that's way beyond my pay grade. I have a saying that I've carried with me. I don't even know where this came from, but it for me, it just kind of sums up where I'm at with it now. One, I'm just bored of the same
Mm.
olds, and it's a brand new puppet, but it's the same old string. That's kind of the way to look at it. Whoever comes in, whoever's in next, it'll just be lots and lots of promises. This is what we're going to do. Look how amazing we're going to be when we come in. And I remember having a chat with Sacha Lord recently about this, and by God, he did not pull his punches around
I bet.
sitting in the Labour manifesto launch for the last election. We're going to do X, Y, Z, and all of a sudden there was hope that they're going to be the party to get behind hospitality, and of course it's the same old. They get in. Oh, you remember that thing we said that we were going to do? Well, we're probably now that we know and really truly understand what's in play, and you're just like, oh, fuck off! Like, seriously.
Yeah.
But anyway,
it's absolute bullshit. So
it is. Anyway, your story. But I mean, I jest, but actually, what I think the key thing for me is what you're doing is, and this would be my plea to anybody who's listening to this on the back of what you've done this week, is that if you feel you've even got 2% of your voice that can get involved and do something, like, do it. Like, all of these little percentages will make a massive difference. And collectively,
I was very frustrated, to be honest, and because of the absolute lack of support that this letter's got, and I was really, really frustrated and forlorn sort of yesterday, and I vented a lot. I vented on my Instagram stories, and I think that Caitlin, who runs our social media, posted it up on our LinkedIn, so people can go and find that level of vent. And if you if you feel anything that you can help, share it, even if you send it to one other person. My ideal would be that everyone listening to this sends it to 10 people, and those 10 people send it to 10 people, and before you know it, we're where we need to be. I just don't understand the lack of support for it. I really don't. I don't understand why everyone hasn't gone, stick my John Hancock on that.
Yeah.
It's just mental.
Well, and equally, even if you are a business that is still doing well, like, the way to look at this is not, okay, this is going to be the eradication of competitors, so why do I care? It's nothing to do with that at all. It's to do with the fact that actually, as a collective, we have been neglected as an industry for a very, very long time. We're obviously not taken seriously. We need to change that. We need to take. I don't know what the latest stats are. You probably got more handle on this, but we are, the third biggest employer.
Absolutely.
And what happens if those people are no longer paying national insurance, paying their PAYE tax into the coffers because there's less jobs around? This is the thing I just don't get. I cannot
like you
arrive.
said, it's one ecosystem, and so I don't get it either, mate. I don't get it. But all we can do, I think, is go and eat out and drink out and encourage everyone to really love the hospitality industry. And people say to me, well, I bet you wouldn't want your son to go into hospitality. My son can go and do whatever he wants to do, right? Whatever makes him happy. And I think hospitality is a brilliant career to move on and into. I'm not saying I would necessarily want him to be doing late nights and early mornings and maybe running a pub like all of his life, but if that's what he wants to do, if that's what makes him happy, then absolutely. I mean, I think
if that's his cockroach in the bloodstream, then
if that's his cockroach in the bloodstream, exactly. I adore this industry. I love everything about it. We were together recently at a massive event down in London, and I could have stayed there for about 2.5 weeks and spoke to so many other people. Me and you didn't get enough time together. I was really lucky that Chris let me host his podcasting for the day. So I've got some of the brilliant people, the panelists coming in, and I was asking everyone, I think some of the really senior directors were really spun out because, like, I sat them down and like, what's your favourite sandwich? They were like, what? I was like, come on, sandwiches is a great topic to
What is
talk.
my
What's your
favourite
favourite sandwich, Phil?
Yeah,
What's your favourite
that's
sandwich?
that's the toughest question anybody's ever asked me on this
Mate,
podcast.
we should
I
know
think.
that. You should know that. And surely,
Sorry,
I mean,
Conrad.
everyone should
the
know their sandwich, right? I mean,
but well, so
coronation chicken.
here's
Coronation
my
chicken
political
before that.
response. My political
Go on.
response, seeing as we're
Go
in the
on.
political frame of mind, is
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
I'm just a lover of food, and I'm very mood driven by
Yeah,
what I
I get that.
and I love pretty much any and all sandwiches.
Mm,
I'm not really
mm.
that into I was going to call it Conrad chicken there, coronation chicken.
You're not into coronation chicken?
No,
Oh, I do a great coronation chicken, but I'm with you. I bloody love a really well made sandwich, great bread. I mean, again,
yeah,
like I was saying about really taking pride in everything. Like whatever I make, whatever I cook, I take a lot of pride in my cooking. I did work in the kitchens as well as so I worked at One Rosette at Malmaison in Birmingham underneath a brilliant chef, a guy called Ray Brown, who had worked under Marco Pierre White. So he was really standards driven, Ray, and he created a brilliant culture in the kitchen, and it properly broke me. I mean, I was working there as my placement year, as part of my degree. And I did like 3 doubles in a row, and my mum was like, "I shall be ringing them up. This is ridiculous." I went, "You're fucking not ringing them up. Can you just imagine?
can you imagine?
Little Conrad,
Oh, it's
we
your
got
little
him
mum.
on 3 doubles. We got him on 3 doubles." I mean, they gave me a box of tomatoes to Concats, which is, if anyone doesn't know, listens to this, maybe someone might not. It's like fine ice, Concats is fine ice. And it took me fucking ages to do that. And he was like, "Right, well, that should have took you 45 minutes, and it's taking you 3 hours. You need to be a lot faster." But I loved working in the kitchen, and it really, again, I think that cross training is something that not enough businesses do. I always say to my clients, do you cross train? And they're like, "Well, no, because why would you want chef to come out front and vice versa?" I'm like, "Oh my god, you're missing the trick. There's
Mm.
not enough cross training at all. I think people should appreciate each other's job roles, just in order to be harmonious. I think it creates and garners a much more positive culture. I spend so much time talking about culture and trying to speak to clients and speaking to candidates. And we obviously we run the Midlands Hospitality Network, and we have some brilliant people come and talk about creating a positive culture. And I've worked in some brilliant cultures. I mean, truly inspiring places that you love. And when you come back to talking about hospitality, how many people really love what they do? You speak to like many mates who aren't in our industry. I've got one mate who bloody sells bulk energy, and I've got another mate who's an accountant. I've got another mate, and then like none of them love what they do.
No, they do it because they can.
You speak to people in hospitality, and hopefully, a really, really high percentage of those people absolutely love what they do, and it is a certain type of person. And I go back to all of those people at service, at Chris and the Tech on Toast teams event service down at Brewdog, and there's just a vibe, right? There's just a buzz.
Yeah, totally.
And you know loads of people. You're really, really well known guy in the industry, and it was just brilliant to see so many people that you're like, oh, like I said, you could have been there for
there was a period. I think I was stood at exactly the same spot for 2 hours, and had like 20 different conversations just because somebody walks past and goes, "Phil." And and this is why these events are also
there was an orderly queue. There was an orderly queue for time with you.
Nothing orderly about service. But no, and I had this conversation just yesterday with Gemma Glasson, who I shared a panel with at service, MD of Oaxaca, and she's a case in point. Like she oozes passion for what she does. Like you cannot shut that woman down. She just emits so much for it. And we were talking about the very same thing around, that culture is such a broad word, and everybody knows that they should be paying attention to this. I think if you don't know that you should be paying attention to it, then you shouldn't be in a people-focused business, quite frankly. And the flip side of all of that is that culture is something which is very difficult to get right, because we're talking about human beings in the end, the individuality.
Make it difficult,
Yeah.
I don't think it's difficult personally. I don't, and I'm really sorry that there's going to be people going, dickhead, of course it's him. And I don't think it is. I don't think it's difficult. people. I think it's treating other people. You have to, like, I got stopped once by someone from the Church of Scientology in the middle of Birmingham. You have to avoid these people like the plague, but one collared me and I had a minute. And they said, if you could give one piece of advice to everyone in the world, what would it be? And I said, treat everyone like you'd want to be treated. And at the time, it was the Iraq War. I was very young. I said, like, Saddam Hussein, he wouldn't be doing what he's doing if it was being done to him. And I just think that goes throughout everything you do in life. If you think about what you would want and how you would want to be treated, how you'd want your son or daughter to be treated, whatever, you know what I mean? So I actually think that creating culture, it's all the information's out there if you're struggling for it, but it's just thinking about people, putting their needs at the forefront of course, the needs of your business. I hope that my team feel that I've created a really positive culture of inclusivity and they know that their families come first. No one has to if they need to leave to get someone from school or even if they just need to book a dental appointment in, just do a couple of hours on a Saturday. No one's checking, it's like micromanaging you. You're an adult, and I treat you like an adult. And I think I treat everyone with respect. And whenever I had hospitality business, I still blessed some of the guys that work for us at the chip shop. We've never had bosses like you and Andy. We're very hands-on at that point. Even when I've been less hands-on in businesses, I think you just, like Ray Brown, the chef I was talking about, just simple things like checking round everyone when he came into the building or when he left the building, going around everyone in the kitchen. How you doing, Conrad? And not going, how you doing, Conrad? And sort of walking past, waiting for the answer. Like when someone goes, Phil, how are you? And they just go, and you listen, right? And I think structure helps people, and some people disagree. But I think that structure helps to build a positive culture because people know what the fuck they've got to do.
You're giving them the framework in which to operate, right?
Yeah, exactly. But it needs to be fluid in that. But the checklists. I always want to see a checklist in a restaurant. I'm like, oh, can I see your mid-session checklist, please? Like, I'm such a geek for a checklist. But when I went to work at Fat Duck, they had a checklist just the same. I was like, oh my God, the best restaurant in the world has this really, really detailed checklist, and you put your name by it, and then that Phil polished the teaspoons. So if they're crap, we're going to have a little word about how we can make them better next time, Phil. You know what I mean? But I love that kind of.
Did you have a camera on my service when I was doing teaspoons?
Well, teaspoons were always a pain in the arse, weren't they?
Well, and they go missing as well. There's
That's what I mean. Yeah.
teaspoon thieves.
Used to have them in my apron. If I had an apron, I'd have my own in my apron. I used to work at TGI Fridays and I used to have a bus out. I used to love working at TGI Fridays, man. And a lot of the theories that you learn at TGI Fridays have always stayed with me. And I think, again, about that when creating a positive culture, my favourite one was always the oyster theory, which the guest is the pearl inside the oyster. And any one little grain of sand can get in and affect that pearl and ruin that pearl. So we have to think about all of the externalities that could affect the guest during their time with us. And that could be the music being too loud, or the heating, or or the meal, or the service, or whatever. But all of those externalities need to be thought about. I still use a lot of the Fridays kind of theories. It was a great place to work. It's a shame what's happened to that place.
Yeah. No, indeed. Well, evolution's another discussion point, is it? But we won't get into that today because you are you are a walking evolution. In actual fact, that's what your journey is, and I 100% appreciate that. We have done this so sporadically all over the place. Your journey. Nobody can really probably put a journey together for you at the moment. So let's bring some structure. You just talked about structure.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Started out KP.
Yeah.
Worked in some front office places. How did it all? Talk us through the actual journey in terms of how it was all put together, the decisions you made, why you made them, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, certainly always working part-time during studies. So, at school, always had part-time jobs at school and really enjoyed it. And then sort of just felt that I wanted to own restaurants. I suppose that was probably my rough plan, would have been that I wanted to own restaurants.
Did you wake up one day and go, I could do that?
As always entrepreneurial, whatever I was doing, I was going to work for myself. It's not that I can't take direction. I just think, I knew people would want to come on board with me, whatever I was going to be doing, be that a fish and chip shop, a restaurant, a recruitment company, a Midlands hospitality network, I sort of felt that. So I suppose I wanted to work at some of the better places, or places that were really busy, and try and get a bit of a breadth of experience. Hence TGI Fridays, hence Simpsons Restaurant, Michelin starred. Very, very different, but I always loved busy, buzzy. Then chose to do that work experience placement year at Malmaison, and did 6 months kitchen, a little bit of time in the stores and goods receiving, which was fascinating. Really, really enjoyed that part. And then front of house, and then stayed working at Malmaison. It was at its absolute pomp here in Birmingham. Still a fantastic hotel, but we're getting famous people all the time. Really great, buzzy VIPs, and like I say, it served so many famous people. Sir Terence Conrad, as I mentioned earlier, being probably the absolute favourite. He sent me a signed copy of his book after I served him that night. I had to tell him that we didn't have any chips. I had to tell Sir Terence Conrad that we'd run out of chips. And he said, "Well, are you telling me there are no potatoes in Birmingham?" I said, "I'm so sorry, but we're obviously buying our chips, and you're the last person I want to say that to." But I was really apologetic to Sir Terence Conrad for that. I told him that his son had been in with John Rosher and sat over there. He said, "Office face on cocaine, was he?" I was like, "It was actually, yeah." Which I thought was really funny. But served some brilliant people at Mal. Loved my time at Mal. And then when I came out of my degree, absolutely blown away that I got first in my degree. It just completely knocked me back. My dissertation was incredibly high, one of the highest that year. I came up with a way of measuring customer satisfaction, which is obviously intangible on the whole, on a sort of scale. And it was, you would effectively give out a kind of questionnaire with 10 questions, and each would have a grading of 10, and then you would implement some changes within the business, and then you would do it again across another 100 or 1,000 people ideally, and from that you came up with a way of measuring customer satisfaction. So I actually got a first, so I was very, very, very pleased. Blown away, in fact. My mum didn't believe me when I phoned her. I was like, "Mum, I got a first." She went, no, please tell me you got a 2-1. I went, no, honestly I did. And so after
And
that,
no AI to help you back then as well. That was all your own thinking.
it was all my own thinking, yeah, to my detriment at times. No, but I mean, I'm a massive fan of using AI now, but no, none back then. So then I did the Mitchells and Butlers graduate scheme, which was really good, really structured, and it was in a gastropub, really busy gastropub, quite a nice area of Birmingham, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it there. I was there for 3 years. Got my first GM role then, which was kind of a lounge bar, food in Birmingham city centre, and then decided it was time to, wanted my own gastropub. Couldn't do that, as I said, because of the financial constraints. It would have needed £500,000 to do one really well. So opened the chip shop. It's still a very proud moment. Someone who came over for dinner at ours was like, you had that chip shop, didn't you?" And if you go on my LinkedIn, there's a really embarrassing video of me and Andy from the chip shop that I shouldn't alert anyone to, but I've just alerted quite a lot of people to it. You can go and have a look after it, Phil. It is ridiculous. We won it
Don't worry.
from Yale.com. We won it from Yale.com, and they came and did filming at the shop. And you see the quality of the products there. Still in touch with so many people from there. Like I say, people just really resonated with people, what we did. I met a lot of people through that. So we did the Taste Festival, which was, still have the Taste Festival down in London, and I think they have one in Scotland. Sadly, we don't have one here in Birmingham now. It was really fantastic. And we had bigger queues than Lausanne. They'd just won the F word. Akhtar Islam was still cooking at Lausanne. And you'd got our little chip shop with the longest queues. We did the most money. People really, really, really loved what we did there. And it's an incredibly proud moment to have been the best fish and chip shop in England. And yeah, sadly it failed. But I wear that very much like a badge of honour, and lots of learnings. And then really it did kind of break me and push me away from the coalface of hospitality, that kind of bankruptcy and what happened after it. My partner at the time was not in the industry, so we'd become very distant from each other because of I was literally just working 6 days a week from 8 a.m. to 11 o'clock at night. I was completely wiped out on a Sunday. I think I'm very lucky that I've never really suffered with any kind of depression or negative mental health. I'm a very positive person, but that was a very low point. for me, obviously. As much as I wear it like a badge of honour now, it was incredibly hard, and bankruptcy was hard, for sure.
I've
Uh,
got a theory about events like that
mm,
in life. And events like that are inevitable in people's life. I'm not necessarily talking specifically about bankruptcy, but something
mm,
that really tests every fibre of you as a human
mm,
being and what you stand for. And actually, I
mm.
think as an optimist, I think you are quite. It's quite safe to say that you're generally an optimistic guy.
I think so.
Surviving these experiences, I think they weirdly make you more optimistic, because they
Yeah.
certainly have in my own life around the stuff that I've overcome.
Mm,
I now I'm like you. I am so grateful that I've been through these experiences, because they've taught me
mm,
something about myself. But they've made me maybe look at the mirror in a little different, in a
mm,
different way, and say, okay, what could you have done something different here? And if the answer is yes,
mm.
then let's make sure that we're not putting ourselves in a situation again whereby you can look at yourself in the mirror and go, "There's nothing else I could have done." And so, yeah,
Yes.
I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
negativity makes us more positive. There we are. Yeah, it's deep, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah, yeah. It is. Love it. I didn't think we'd get that deep, but no, we have got there. So after that, I lectured at the College of Food for a little bit. They let me lecture there for a little bit. Ironically, the first lecture they asked me to do was financial control in hospitality, having just gone bankrupt. So I stood up in front of the students and said, don't do it like me. Do it like I'm going to tell you.
I do
But
know what I'm talking about, but
yeah, yeah. I really enjoyed my time going back to UCB. And I've kept incredibly strong links with UCB. I'm very proud of that institution, that I came through that institution. I mean, it is as good as anywhere in the world to study hospitality and food. And I've seen it grow. It's a brilliant, brilliant place. And like I say, I mean, we invite our students to our Midlands hospitality networks. I go back and do guest lecturing quite a bit, a couple of times a year. I always give my fee to Hospitality Action. But UCB is a very, very special place in my heart. And then I kind of thought, okay, I don't think this is for me long term, being at UCB as a lecturer. And I didn't really know what to do, if I'm being honest. And someone said to me, "You are an absolute gobshite. You can just come and get on the phones for me." He's got a recruitment company in sales. He recruited sales and marketing people. And I got on the phone, and I was okay at it. It wasn't a great company, really. And I sort of thought, after about 6 to 8 months, maybe, I thought, I know hospitality. That's what I know. So I'm going to go and be a recruiter in hospitality. And I went, had an interview with one of the larger companies, and they did that. I didn't quite get that. And then I went to work for a company called Off to Work, who are more of a temporary staffing provider, or known more so. And I set and helped to set up a perm division. And I loved my time with Off to Work. It was amazing. I cannot speak highly enough of Philip, the managing director, of Katie Pierce, who was my sort of direct manager, and everyone within that business. And we don't do temp recruitment at Tonic, because I kind of believe that if you're going to absolutely excel at one, you do one, and
mm,
you know. But whenever anyone wants some temp support, I do recommend them. And I used to go back out and work in the field. That was one of the things I loved about it. So I would go and work at Silverstone. I'd work the F1. I'd look after one of the paddocks. I used to go every year to the British Open at golf, and I used to look after MasterCard. And like, I'd have like the senior presidents of MasterCard every year, and they'd be like, they called me Sea Dog. And, loved it. I
as
loved
I
it.
will now as well.
Say again.
As I will now too. I will now call
Sea
you and refer to you as the Sea Dog.
I'll take it, Phil. I'll take it, man. After the orderly queue that you had at service, you can call me whatever you want, my man. Off to Work was great though, and those events were fantastic. Going out and just working on the floor, it was interesting how some people who used to treat you, obviously, they didn't know that I was, someone who was vastly experienced, I suppose, in the industry, and pretty shit hot. And still, you could get really spoken down to, and they had a real shock sometimes, because I would, let's say go back to, I'm using this as an example, but I'm not saying that anything negative happened there, but I would take that to the top of head of Silverstone. Again, nothing bad happened at Silverstone, I'm using it as an example, and say, you're never going to get the best out of our teams if this is how you are managing them. They are not to be spoken to in this negative way. I don't know why some people think that like dick swinging against young people, like, bashing them and stuff. It's still not that way to go at all. Never going to get the best out of anyone like that. I've never needed to. You just don't need to.
Agreed.
So yeah, after then, I worked for After Work for a good number of years, and then my bankruptcy passed, so I could set my own company up again. And I knew as soon as the bankruptcy had passed and I could be a director of another company, that I wanted to set up a recruitment company myself. And so I met someone who invested in that business, a lady called Liz Jones. She had a PR company, and she helped me out. And then Tonic was born, and we're 10. We are 10 in. I'll never forget the day I started the business, because it was Independence Day, 4th of July. So you're never going to forget that. Oh, you're starting your own business on Independence Day. And we're going to have a bit of a birthday bash for our 10 years this year. I felt that recruitment, I'd been a recruiter, I'd been a candidate of a recruiter previously, and I'd been placed, and I'd used recruiters. And I got to be honest, it was poor. And the feeling was that recruiters is pretty slapdash. And so I felt that we could pretty easily, and don't get me wrong, there are some really, really good recruiters out there and some good recruitment companies, but there's also a lot of KPI-led slapdash mud throwing. And I think being a good recruiter is akin to being like the tallest dwarf. It's really not hard, because there's a lot of bad recruiters out there. But I know that we do a really good job. And, look, it's been tough, a really tough 10 years, of course, and it is hard at the moment. And actually, we spoke about self-reflection and holding the mirror up earlier. And there was a point last year where I had to go, like, you're not actually working as probably hard as you need to at the moment. Think about the chip shop and think about how you've really dug in previously, and maybe let's look at what we can improve and be a little bit more strategic, and let's reflect. Let's really double down. One of the other directors, Tom, was like, look, we really need to like really double down on the quality. We do video interviews. I don't know why people don't, really. Again, it's just completely slapdash. You cannot build a rapport with someone as well over the phone as you can on a video. I just don't know why more recruiters don't do it. But I think a lot of them, I'll speak to some people and I'll say, oh, you go for the job. How did you maybe look at that through a recruiter? Do you mind me asking about the process? And I'll check in on the recruiter's process. Well, yeah, we had a little chat on the phone for 10 minutes and then they put my details over. I'm just like, oh my God, like we screen for 10, 15 minutes on the phone, and then we invite people to the video interview. Now, the video interview of the gentleman I was talking to you about earlier that I loved speaking to this week, I've had loads of interviews this week and people I could recall, but this gentleman was the exec chef for Jamie's Italian, and we knew a lot of the same people, and we were on for 55 minutes. So that candidate, I've had an hour and 15 with that candidate over phone and video. I don't know many recruitment businesses that spend that amount of time, but the buy-in that you get from that candidate and the amount that I know that candidate and can speak to them really with confidence, I've really got to know that person really, really well. And I remember, and I'm not going to name this guy's name, he's a fucking dick, but I'm not going to name his name, but he owns a really, really big recruitment company, like really well-known recruitment company. And
I think I know who you're talking about.
And he was at some awards, and he bowled over to me and he said, "Oh, where do you work?" And I said, "Oh, I said you're going to be ever so annoyed because you've come over to another recruitment business owner, actually." And he went, "Oh, what makes your company so good then?" And I was like, "I mean, steady on, mate." I said, and at the time we have now had 2 no-shows, but at the time we'd never had a no-show at interview to a client. People change their mind, fine. We'd never had a no-show, and you should have seen this guy's face drop. He was like, and this guy would be really rich, and I know that they are mega busy. But actually, for me, I want to be comfortable. I don't need to be rich. I've got a car that is perfectly satisfactory. I've got a watch that tells the time and is nice. And, there's better cars out there, more expensive cars, more expensive watches. I'm happy doing what I do and doing it well, and putting a lot of pride into what we do. Would I like to grow it a little bit more money? Yeah, I would. Keep them all from a little further from the door, don't get me wrong. But I really love, again, doing something to the best of my ability and doing it as well as it can be done. And I think when we first, we had a long chat, a lot of cricket and a lot of recruitment and this, that and the other. And you said when you met, another recruiter that I really respect is Abby Dunn from 68 People. And you said you sat next to her and went, fucking hell, I'm just going to get out your way.
That is literally what went through my head.
Yeah. And she set up 68 at the same time that Tonic set up. And, you know, she's grown it so well. She's brilliant. Like, I have massive respect for her, you know, but I think we've done pretty well over our 10 years as well, you know, to get where we are. And I think that, you know, we are viewed as a real extension of clients' brands as well. You know, I love it when we get invited to their staff parties and, you know, you kind of treated like a true extension of their brand. And then I've got amazing people who come to us and say, look, you know, I'm not going on the job boards, but I'd certainly be interested in hearing about something good. I love it when clients come to us and it's really consultative. So UCB came to me and they wanted someone to bring into a sort of head up commercial, and in the end they called it a different job title, but I was with them for 2.25 hours hashing out what the job should be. We don't do a great deal of retained work, but that was retained work, which is obviously the complete utopia for recruiters. But I don't know, I don't mind the contingency model. A lot of recruiters are all about pushing for exclusivity and I don't think that necessarily. I personally think you should use 2 recruiters. Personally, I think you start to use 3, 4, 5. You all hear about, oh, well, it's just a big bun fight, right? That we won't get involved in that big bun fight. But actually, I think, you know, us going up against Abby, say at 68, 2 good people fighting it out. Like I think that if any recruiter tells you that exclusivity is best, and I hear the argument for it, because the consultant will know that, oh, it's just come to them, that job's just come to them, and they're absolutely guaranteed to fill it, so they work it harder. Yeah, but from my point of view, you put 2 recruiters up against each other. That's what I'd say, and I'd say go off and find another good recruiter, use Tonic, and away we go. You know, I think that's what's actually best. And again, I say to candidates, you know, if I am certain that we can find something for someone, I will tell them. If not, I'm like, look, go and apply for a load of jobs. It's like trying on, when you're looking for a jumper, you don't just try one jumper on, buy it. You go and try a load of fucking jumpers on.
Oh man, that's what I've been doing wrong.
I know, that's why you got that crap blue jumper on. It's a lovely shade of blue.
It's branded. It's branded, although you can never see that.
Oh yes,
that's
excellent,
why.
nice, mate.
Although that branding will be changing. That's on the 2026 list.
Excellent
to do. So
I look forward to seeing the changes, my friend.
But no, I think we got introduced to each other when we did a webinar with Chris and Kieran going back into COVID, when we were talking about recruitment. Actually, I think because I used to do that until I got out of Abby's way.
You?
Yeah.
So you grew up, yeah.
And I think that you. I think this is. I hope that this is still one of my superpowers. Is as what was that Al Pacino said in The Recruit? I'm a scary judge of character, something like that. That was a bad impression, but anyway,
that was decent. I'm with you.
And I think this is the thing about, like, there's a word that flies around on this podcast a few times in terms of how we talk about the industry and the way it should behave with itself. And one of the words that comes up is co-opetition. So it's like a kind of mix of, let's spur each other on. Let's all just be, yes, you can exist and I can exist. We can still get on. We can still have a good laugh, and we can still be taking on each other in a fight, as it were, in inverted commas.
Couldn't agree more.
And what you just said there speaks to that. I think I completely agree with you. By the way, I think I think a lot of the time in the world of recruitment, the recruitment company wants to do what is right for the recruitment company, and I understand the reasoning behind that. As a business, you of course you want to protect your own interest, but really in the end, it's a service industry. So the service that you are offering is twofold: one to a client, and the other to a candidate. And actually, the byproduct of you is, if you do those two things well, then you'll be looked after as well.
100%. And being exemplary in it. I mean, when Tom sort of came to me, it was after we'd all read Unreasonable Hospitality, and Tom said, "Look, let's like absolutely double down on this." And like the reviews that we get left from candidates, and I'm not joking you, most candidates will be like, "I cannot believe the level of support." Like it kind of felt like you were sitting there through the interview with me, or and they come out like we book everything in as well. I get that framework, so got candidate calls booked in for people who are going to interview later. Then they'll call me as soon as they come out. Then I've got the booked in, so we keep the process like really moving for people as well. Which again, I don't know whether everyone's like, oh, that's just recruitment, but like we're tight on that. We're process driven, but we're very kind of free to spend a lot of time on what we do. Really, it's not about loads of people like. Bless, and I don't want people to stop sending me jobs, but friends will be like, the pub's looking for a chef. I'm like, all the fucking pubs are looking for chefs. Do you know what I mean? Like, bless you, Mom. I know that the White Horse in Stourbridge is looking for a fucking chef. Okay.
Yes, but this pub is the most important pub that needs a chef because it's my pub.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, sort it out. So yeah, really, really, really try and take a lot of pride. And as you know, and I've touched on it a little bit, we run something called Midlands Hospitality Network, and I'm a massive believer in the fact that I feel like we're in a position to kind of do some good in what we do. So we do loads of charity work as a company. We cook dinner at Cipher Fireside, which is a Christmas dinner at Cipher Fireside, which is a homeless charity here in Birmingham. Hospitality Action very, very kindly made me an ambassador for kind of work that I've done for them. We host the Walk for Wellbeing here in Birmingham. We host that each year, and we were up to about 150 odd walkers last year. So I'm really hoping we can push over 200. I'm hyper competitive, so I want to beat all the other cities. You're never going to get more than London. London always smashes it, but we raised way more money than any other city this year for that. We do loads with the Children's Hospital here in Birmingham. So we did something that where we put £1 on the bill called Dine and Donate, and that was raised a lot of money. I did 100k walk in a day and to raise some more money for them as well. That was really hard work.
Really?
Really hard work. Yeah. Yeah. It's
100k?
100k in a day. Yeah. It took us like 22 hours. It's pretty brutal. But through Midlands Hospitality Network, through Tony, try and really like give a lot back. I don't know. I just keep myself really, really, really busy with a lot of different stuff, and I like it like that. My mum's always like, "How was your day?" I'm like, if I told you, you wouldn't get your head around it.
Yeah, we'll just go with busy, and we'll leave
Let's
it there.
just go with busy. How was church?
Yeah. It's busy. There was 7 people there this week.
Yeah, absolutely. But no, if anyone wants any more kind of information about, if you could put a link to Midlands Hospitality Network, if anyone's anywhere in the country, they're welcome to come along to it. It's certainly not, but we've had some brilliant people come and talk. A good friend of both of ours, Kieran Bailey, pretty much comes to every meeting, and the gold dust that man drops on any discussion about hospitality is next level. Like, I absolutely love him. Chris from Tech on Toast coming to do another one this year. We've got Springboard, who I'm an ambassador for Springboard, and actually I suppose I should shamelessly brag that I am up for Ambassador of the Year for Springboard this year.
Nice. You definitely should plug that for sure.
Which is I'm blown away about, because that is a seriously big deal, right? There's some incredible ambassadors. Springboard is a brilliant charity, and I'm up for Ambassador of the Year. So I can't see that I'd win it. But, we do a lot again for Springboard. We do, I'll free up the guys and we do full days of interviews for their cohorts when they're coming through. So we do like practice interviews and CV help, give them some assistance with CV and help them with interview prep and stuff like that. And I've done that for years now. We must have done hundreds of them, over the years. And through MHN, I give Springboard a platform once a year to come and try and recruit some more people. So I'm sure most people will have heard of Springboard and Hospitality Action. But if you haven't, check those guys out. They are both amazing charities. Really, really important for hospitality.
For sure. Absolutely. Look, we could probably keep going on, right? For hours
We
and
could.
hours. Yeah.
People, no one else is going to be listening
No,
now,
it's
mate.
just you
They've
and me
totally
now.
zoned out. Just me and you. Yeah.
But I can't let you go without talking about. You've brought up potatoes before in this chat, to be fair, but there is another potato story in your background that I would love to explore, because I definitely don't think we've had anything like this on the show before, and I think you know what I'm talking about.
I do, yeah. Silver service at a place called Hagley Hall. So I used to work at this big wedding and events space, Hagley Hall, just outside of Birmingham. All of my mates worked there. It was incredible. We absolutely loved it. But yeah, silver serving dropped a potato down the shirt and tie of Jack Straw, just as he was about to sort of go up and address the room. And that was a pretty bad moment, to be honest with you. I was like... quite a big deal.
Were you like shaking with the thing? Is that
I was nervous, and potato just kind of went, and then I was like, oh. But so I mean, you asked me about funny bits to put on the form, and there were just so many in the industry. It made me sit back and think about it. It was my time in industry. I adored all of it, every bit. And I love when I do get to go back and I'd love to do shifts here and there. If anyone wants me to come and do half a day or something, I love getting involved with it. And I still absolutely love my cooking at home. No matter what I'm making, sandwich or really nice
coronation chicken, right?
Course, coronation chicken, it, or a really nice 3-course. We had some friends over, and my wife was helping me prep, and literally I was like prepping like half the day before and all that morning, but it was the balls. And someone gave me 2 rosettes, which was great. I thought, that's 2 rosettes, I'll take that.
Chateau Conrad at
Chateau Brunton, Chateau Sea Dog,
there we are. Look, awesome to spend some time with you. As always, it's always a pleasure to spend some time with you. I will put all of the links in the show notes in the social release around the important work that you are doing and pushing. I would just urge anybody who is still with us listening to this that you get behind it, because as we discussed earlier on, this is not even just a case of Midlands hospitality. This is if you like hospitality in any form, whether you work in it or not, the industry needs you more than ever.
Yeah, and you know what? Even if you don't like hospitality and you're a dick, can you just fucking sign it anyway?
Yeah, no one did. Everyone just do it.
Just do it. Just do it. Thank you, Phil.
Nice one. Take it easy, mate. I'll see you again soon.
I hope so.
Nice one. And there we have it. Well, I had a cracking time with Conrad. Definitely one of hospitality's good guys. Please do get behind his campaign, and a reminder that the link will be in the show notes. We will, of course, be back next week with another awesome journey from hospitality, so have yourselves a cracking week, and I'll see you then.